Hi, welcome to Omni Vision. Today we'll be discussing the subject of agriculture, and today I have some really great panelists with me. To my left I have Angela Moore. She's the leader with Grow Green and also a student in environmental science. On my right I have Ryan Boswell. He's the director of Clean Air Arkansas and a student in chemistry. On my left I have Jacob Holloway. He's a student in agriculture economics and also the president of Campus Greens. And on my right, we also have Joanna Pollock, and she has a degree in nutrition, and now she's seeking a degree in counseling, and she's also the chair of the Omni Carbon Caps Task Force. And today, we're going to be discussing agriculture, and I just want to have a brief introductory statement to sort of put some of this in context. Right now, our nation and our world is facing so many crises. Our nation, we're facing wars, multi-trillion-dollar wars. We're facing economic turmoil in Wall Street, banking. We face a $12 trillion debt, skyrocketing healthcare costs, skyrocketing education costs, foreclosures, unemployment, global warming, endangered democracy. With all these crises, it's hard to put things into the proper perspective of what's dangerous and what we really need to be most concerned about. And to understand which crisis is most critical, it's kind of difficult for a lot of Americans because we are bombarded with these commercial messages all the time on television that teach us a lot about desire, what we need to want, but they don't teach us much about what we really need. And there are some basic fundamental needs that we have, and there's nothing more critical than food or water. And in my view, the agricultural crisis that we're facing and increasingly about to face is going to be the most severe crisis that our nation and planet will face. And we're truly facing a food crisis, and that's the subject we want to talk about today. And our first subject within the agriculture discussion has to do with our current industrial agricultural system and its reliance on fossil fuels and chemical pesticides and chemical fertilizers. And this is extremely critical in light of the recent reports about peak oil. A recent report said that a whistleblower with the International Energy Agency said that actually we may have already reached peak oil. Previous estimates said that we would reach it in 2030, but this whistleblower is saying that we may have already reached peak oil. So in the very near future, we're going to see gas prices and our agricultural food commodities based on cheap oil. We're going to see these prices go way up, and this is extremely critical. And I don't know if any of you have anything to say maybe about.
Yeah, I'll steal that from you, Abel. You know, our industrial agricultural systems' reliance on distant micronutrients and cheap fossil fuels is really a recipe for disaster. As these things are going to continue to rise in price, but they're actually going to decrease in their availability. And you look at a population graph, and you look at when we started using nitrogen fertilizer in the 1940s after World War II. At that time, almost a little more than half of our produce here in the United States we were producing in home gardens, and now it's only 2% of the produce in America is actually from home gardens. And when we started using nitrogen-based fertilizer, we were able to have huge.
The Green Revolution.
The Green Revolution came in the 70s, and this was before the 70s.
Yeah.
And what we were having is we had the ability to really produce a lot of food, and we actually had ag policies at that time to actually curb back the food that we were producing because we didn't want to produce too much food. The market would be flooded with food, and farmers would be out of a job. So a lot of the agricultural policies back in the 50s were actually to curb back food production, actually produce less. It wasn't until the 1970s that we had the Green Revolution. We had a new ag secretary come in and basically said, "Get big or get out," was his famous words. And one of the things to think about with nitrogen fertilizer, you look at a population graph. I was going to get back to that. You see, as soon as we started using nitrogen fertilizer, which is a byproduct of petroleum. Population
formed through the Haber process.
Haber-Bosch process.
Natural gas.
It uses natural gas to change molecular nitrogen into ammonia.
Right.
Yeah.
Says the chemist.
Yeah, chemist.
That's where I jump in.
Yeah.
Basically, our population skyrocketed going into the 50s and 60s. We were able to produce more food. And it was a good thing in some respects. In another way, I think we got carried away.
Right. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
we had a population explosion. I mean, and we, went from well under 1 billion people for thousands and thousands of years, and now we're 7 billion. And I mean, and partly it was this oil-based agriculture that allowed this population explosion, and it's helped prevent mass starvation in some cases, which is good. But at the same time, we haven't had an adult discussion. We haven't had an adult discussion about stabilizing our population rates. I mean, nobody wants to talk about that. That's like,
I want to talk about it.
yeah. Do you have anything to say about it? I mean,
I didn't know. Didn't realize that we were going to talk about
it
that
certainly ties
tonight,
in. I
but,
mean, population, being able to feed this huge population is a huge issue. I mean,
Absolutely, it's all interconnected, and I see the empowerment of women as critical for dealing with population issues, and it comes back to choice, and freedom. Studies have shown that if we were able to provide to the women of the world who actually just want to plan their own families and just not, have children, without any choice at all, if they had that choice, we're not talking about stopping women from having children that don't want to have children or that want to have children, but just women who want to manage.
right.
That would do more to address the climate change situation than anything that we're talking about in terms of renewable energy sources and these massive international policy changes.